So welcome to the council update for, I guess it's August 19th today. We had a council meeting yesterday. I'll just run through the agenda as to what happened. Number one, one of the big things we did yesterday, there's a few of them, but was sign the long-term recovery plan agreement with the government of Alberta. And this is a document that's taken months to put together so that everybody's on the same page as to the government's commitment to High River, and it's not just get through the first year and we're good to go. It's what needs to be done is extensive in this town. So this is a plan that takes us to September 2018, and I got to thank the government of Alberta and everybody that was involved excuse me, for putting this thing together, because it's extremely important that we have that commitment from the government for us to move forward and get done the things that we need to get done. So we got that signed off, and that was a very good thing for both parties to be done with, so we can move forward and just start getting more stuff done. There's a lot going on now, and there's a couple of years left of doing those things. So going into the delegations, the three delegations, the mini library, Ms. Lorraine Andrews came, and these are little mini library boxes that people can trade books through that'll be stationed all over town. I don't know however many of them, but Lorraine's going to work with the town and FCSS to figure out where the best places are, and with the library. So that'll be something that you'll see in the next few months and everything. So Claresholm Transportation Society, they came down. They do a lot of patient care transportation between Claresholm, Calgary, Lethbridge. Just wondering, asking council if there's any interest up here of having that as part of this town and this community. But so we kind of directed them to talk with the High River Handy Bus, because they're our primary provider of those kinds of things right now. So they can work with them and come back to us to see if there is any kind of partnership that we can work into. And then the PRAC committee, Duncan Scott came and gave an update, because we had the Twist Economic Development Plan was finished up and handed to us a few weeks ago, and we've had time to go through it and decide where it is. And I'll talk more about that later on, but Duncan kind of gave their input as to how they feel about it and where it needs to go from here, and I agree 100% that this is a plan that's very extensive. There's a lot in it. There's a lot of very new stuff, up-to-date stuff for High River. It's extremely exciting. But what we need to do now with our community groups is filter that and decide, okay, what's attainable, number one, for High River, what's real, and what's sustainable. So, you know, doing something this year that you can't continue on next 30 years won't work. So it's got to be just filtered and come up with a plan that's going to work for the next few decades here as to where we're headed and what we are. So adoption of the minutes from the last July 21st meeting. That's about it on that. Arts and Culture bylaw amendments. The Arts and Culture Board came to us, or committee came to us, and asked to make a few amendments to their bylaws. So we listened to that, and Joel Windsor did an excellent presentation on that. But what we always have to do when a group brings those to us is make sure it goes through our people so that it fits the Town of High River's procedure bylaws. Not only that, it's got to fit with the Municipal Government Act with Government of Alberta, so that it fits with what they're doing as well, and everything's legit. So we didn't do any first, second readings on that to pass that bylaw, because we've got to filter it through the other stuff first. So property tax bylaw, this was a big one that I know when we were all first elected, and I know the previous council was quite concerned as to how these property taxes were going to shake out and how it was going to affect everybody in High River. And you know, the work that our CFO Tom Meyer and his team have done on this to protect this community, so that it's as fair and equal across the board as we possibly do it. The work they've done is absolutely amazing. I don't know how got to this plan, but we were very worried that we would have some people with, you know, depending on how affected their house was from the flood, with drastic decreases in their tax revenue, and that had to be made up by people that weren't affected by the flood at all with extremely large increases, because the town still has to operate on a certain budget that this town has to continue on, and that needs to be funded through taxes. So the work they've done, and I can go through some of the stats on it as to how this goes just quickly, but there's 5,500 properties in High River. So 4,000 of these residential properties will see tax decreases. 900 of these properties will receive tax increases from 0 to 3%, and 450 properties will receive tax increases of 3 to 17%, and 100 residential properties will see taxes increase of greater than 17%. Now, I know the number of 17% seems extremely high, but what that number correlates to are new houses that are just coming online. They might have just been finished prior to the flood, and their taxes would have increased because their property value has increased, etc., etc. So that's where the big ones increase. The 17% increases aren't applicable to, you know, houses that have existed in this town for 50 years. It's not like that. The other increases and decreases are whether, depending on how your home was affected by the flood. So a lot of people were saying, why do any tax increases and put that on the town, you know, this year? You have to, because if we don't do the increase this year, it's got to be made up somewhere. And that would probably be next year, so you would see significant bump next year. So it's much smarter to just do gradual increases so that people aren't slammed with some big increase. So that's about it on that. You're going to see a lot more information come out about this year when your notices go out, etc. And in the town crier, there'll be a lot of this kind of data that's on there that'll explain things a little bit more. But again, I got to thank Tom and Bev and, you know, everybody that, Leanne and everybody that has anything to do with figuring out this plan, because it was a stressful one for them to get this thing figured out. And thank you to the government of Alberta, because if we didn't get the $1.6 million of tax stabilization money, that would have drastically affected these increases. So thank you to them. Everybody's in this together, and I think they've come up with absolutely the best plan that they possibly could have. So going through again, property taxes done. Rescind Director of Legislative and Administrative Services. Sharon Dahl, who's been with the town for 26 plus years, is retiring in the next year or so. So there was a position of Director of Legislative and Administrative Services, which we don't really require to have that as a direct council appointed position, so we just made the call to remove it. It's just a housekeeping thing. Land use redesignation from R1 to R1A. This is a secondary suite thing, and we did move it through first reading and moved it through to the public hearing, just so that we can continue this going on. But we're still waiting to make the final decision on what the new rules for secondary suites are, which takes me to my next one, is the new secondary suites policy framework. Everybody knows, and I've talked about it 100 times, as to how this was not working very well last year when we started going through these secondary suites. Because where do we put them? How does the bylaw work? How do we regulate them? Illegal suites are everywhere. You know, we've got R1 districts that to have a secondary suite in there, you have to change the bylaw on your specific property to an R1A. Therefore, you got to come to council and all these other things. At the end of the day, we can either approve it or oppose the bylaw change. If we approve it, okay, they go ahead, it's legal, it's conforming with all the code and everything. But if we don't approve it, who's to say they're not just going ahead and building it anyway? So it's a mishmash all over town. There is no specific places that secondary suites are going. They're going everywhere. It just depends whether they come to council and get the right answer or not. The biggest thing that bothers me are illegal suites. I don't like them. They're usually not safe. People shouldn't be renting them. So this is where we go into the municipal licensing program. And I hate getting into more of these controls, but this is an extremely important one where if we have a municipal licensing program, then those people that have secondary suites will have to come, get them approved by the town of High River, bring them up to code. Therefore, you're on an approved list with the town of High River. So when you have renters coming and they're looking at your property, if you're on that list and it conforms, then we're saying it's a safe place and it fits everything. If that suite is not on that list, I'd be very reluctant for anybody to rent that thing. So that's where the incentive comes to the landlords, that you better get your place up to code and it better be safe so that you can get on this list, because the chances of you renting it without it won't be very good. So that's how we're going to try to control this thing. Now the R1 designation, we are looking at just having secondary suites as a discretionary use of all R1 properties. Therefore, you don't have to come to council and everything else. The reason why we're looking at that is because it exists today. Put all the rules in place you want, secondary suites are everywhere. We're not naive to that, to think that they're only where we say they can be. So they're being put everywhere. So this is just saying, well, if they're everywhere now, why not just open it up and make sure that they're legal? The R1A thing, that's not my biggest thing that I'm worried about. I'm much more worried about this licensing thing. I think it's the right thing to do, and I think it protects people from these illegal, unsafe suites. We'll see a lot more on that. There's going to be a lot more, there's going to be public input sessions where we're going to ask the public to come and give us your input as to what you feel, how you feel about the new rules, and we'll make our decisions based on that input and how we feel this thing needs to go. So going on beyond that, appointment of municipal weed inspector. Alberta Weed Control Act says that we have to appoint a municipal weed inspector every year, so we've appointed Tanis Webb, who's our park supervisor for the town, and she's the best fit for it, so that's just a housekeeping item. And then we get into Twist Marketing's economic development plan again, and I kind of touched on that before, but the economic development plan that Twist Marketing put together, you know, it's huge. There's a lot in there. There's 140 some recommendations, and when we look at it, there's a lot that fits High River, and there's some that we kind of say, well, great idea, it kind of takes us to a different way of thinking, but is that exactly what we want to see for High River? So thank you very much to Twist and Chris and Monica and all the work that you did, and the collaboration you did with all the different business groups in High River, and all the entrepreneurs and the business owners and everything. You went through everything and got this to us. So, but we have to now take it, filter it. Our admin staff, Sharon McCormick, Angie Greneveld, our PRAC committee, our BTAC committee, and the Chamber of Commerce. They all have to get together now and go through this thing and figure out where the plan is, and bring that back to council as to what their best recommendations are as to how we move this town forward. Economic development in High River has been a little bit wish-washy over the last 10 or 20 years, so this we need to really, after what's happened, it's extremely important that we pin down what direction we're headed and be very disciplined in how we get to and attain that and sustain that direction. So lots more to come on that as well, and we're just at the tip of the iceberg on how we're going through that. So development permit application, this goes to 22 attached dwelling units up in the southeast or northeast. This is continuing on with an existing development, and this is just the next phase of it. So it was a development permit application that we approved yesterday. Then there's a direct control development permit for Alone McDonald and Angelo DePauli's property that's just kind of just on the what would it be, the northeast corner of High Country Drive there. Their house had to be torn down, and after the flood, and DRP is helping them get a new place built. So they've been through hell, as many of these DRP issues have, and you know, we talked a lot about future development on that land, but I'll tell you where my head is we've got to get these people back into their house and get them back home. That is always has been priority one for High River, and we can, future development, we'll work around it, but there's nothing on the books right now as to what that might look like anyway, so we'll deal with it. Most important thing is to get these guys home. So a couple of little things we approved. Council approved $885 every year for the River City Classics car show. The town of High River puts their logo on the sleeve of the t-shirts, so we approved funding for that. And then there's the SDAB hearings on a little bit of a development out in the northwest in the High Park Circle area. And SDAB will be making a decision on what type of homes go in this specific area. The two council appointed members live very, very close to that development, so SDAB may not allow those two individuals to vote on it. So what we did was we appointed a second alternate to be able to vote on that panel, which is Councillor Blockland, who lives quite a ways away across the river and everything. Downtown construction, yes, it's hell. It's hell whenever you do big changes and stuff, and this is why change is very, very hard to initiate, because it's hard. It's hard on everybody. It takes a lot, and there's, you know, for the businesses that are downtown there, I get it, because we went through the flood and that was bad enough. You got rolling in the sprung structure. That worked very well, but it was temporary. We all knew that everybody was coming out of there at some point in time, and we had to get them back in their places downtown. And then all the construction that's going on downtown, it's not the greatest business environment right now for 3rd Avenue, and for that matter 4th Avenue is going to be torn up as well. So this is just a progression as to where we got to get to, and we got to get through this. Everybody needs to stay positive on this, support our downtown businesses. Yes, it's a little bit hard to get to some of them, but make the effort. Because when I look at this, my priorities are, sounds like council back there. My priorities is the finished product. We can talk about the delays and all of those kinds of things, but all that matters is the finished product. Nobody's going to be talking about the delays when this is done. They're going to be talking about what the finished product is. So we have to get this right, and it has to be done properly. We can't be looking back and going, man, we should have done this. I sure wish we wouldn't have sped it up and missed that. So we're not sacrificing the project for time, because in a year from now, everybody's going to be back going, and those businesses will have the template to thrive down there, and that's what's most important. So McLeod Trail, we're committed to have that open either by this Friday, depending on the weather. We're supposed to get rain here again. Either by this Friday or by Monday, that McLeod Trail will be opened up. That needs to get opened up and get traffic flowing again. The overall schedule for it is still there. I think initially we had said middle of October for the whole thing. We're kind of between the middle and the end of October right now. Hopefully this rain isn't too much and it delays us further, but 3rd and 4th Avenue, there will be a period of time where they will both be closed together from traffic. And that's just part of the way this thing's gone down. Initially we had it 3rd Avenue would be closed and finished, then we were going to close McLeod, finish that, and then move over to 4th. But because of the problems with Vespucci's and gas lines, etc., we moved crews over and ended up with both streets, McLeod and 3rd, closed. But in order to get this finished by our timelines, it's going to be 3rd and 4th are going to be both closed to traffic for a couple, 3 weeks maximum. But we've got to get this thing done, and that's where we have to keep our focus. It's reality. This isn't something that we just came up with. The infrastructure's has to be torn up. There's no discussion about that. It has to be done. So when we're doing it, we're going to put it back the way that High River should be put back. It's going to be incredible when we're done. It's going to change the face of High River, and that's extremely important. We need that change right now. So, but change is hard, and it's not a fun thing to go through, but it's extremely important. So that's about it. Get a hold of us. You got any questions? We're everywhere for you. So let me know. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.